Thank you, President. Now, I wasn't actually planning on making a contribution on this, but I spoke to the Honourable Tim yesterday, and I thought it was a very important thing to contribute on. So thank you to the Honourable Tim Clifford for bringing this important motion before the House. Now, the report by the Estimate and Financial Operations Committee in 2023 was based on census data from 2021. In 2021, the census was conducted during COVID, so the data is probably a bit distorted with what was going on during that time. So, but it was a very good report and it made some very sensible recommendations. Some recommendations may have been implemented, but the reality is that homelessness, the homelessness crisis and housing crisis, which is obviously closely linked, have not improved. We still have families living in cars and tents because rentals are not accessible. I've seen that firsthand. I was at the IGA one day and met a couple of people there that were living down on the river in tents with their families, and they actually had jobs and were working but just couldn't get houses. So we've got rough sleepers who are still visible in many places across the state. I mean, some people think that homeless is something that only affects drug addicts and mentally ill people, and there's no doubt there's, you know, that's such a cohort out there. But as I just said previously, I've met people that are working and, you know, really good people that just can't get a place. I mean, these people, the drug addicts and the mentally ill and the different people like that, is what the Housing First plan was all about, providing housing and wraparound services for people to get back on their feet and to reintegrate into society. The Housing First strategy, which was actually proposed by One Nation in the 40th Parliament, is a great concept. Now, on the 21st of November 2019, my friend the Honourable Colin Tinknell made a statement in this place advocating for the policy, and I'll quote, "I just want to talk about homelessness. It's a tough discussion and a tough subject. However, there are countries, including in states of the United States and cities in Australia, tackling homelessness front on. They are looking at a system called Housing First. There are many reasons that Housing First is being tried and why there is success tackling homelessness in places all over the globe." So that was back in 2019, before it was even the Housing First got put forward by the Labor government. Now, Housing First is a strategic approach to homelessness that prioritises permanent and stable housing for people experiencing homelessness. But the strategy is almost ironic now. Because of the Housing First strategy, you need housing first. You first need housing. So, and we all know just how hard it is to get a house in WA at the moment, even for people who are working full time and have families. They're really struggling. Apart from the long-term homeless, we have another cohort of homeless people in WA, families and people who work full time. I know a couple who are both police officers, and they were almost homeless. They were really struggling to get a house, and they were lucky enough to be able to stay in their house they were in because the people were selling it, and then the people who bought it, they were able to continue on, but they were looking fanatically trying to get a place and weren't able to get one. So if a sergeant in the police force and another police officer can't get a house, how is anyone else going to get one? So I've also heard from some teachers that some kids are confiding in them that they're not really attentive at school because they're moving from couch to couch and sleeping in cars and stuff. There's even been reports of newborns living in tents, which is pretty horrendous. Now, the underlying reasons for that are that too many people came to WA in too short a time. That's part of the reason, I think, and the government have failed to invest adequately over the last few years in services and infrastructure that's needed to sustain that influx. That's been a big contributor. I mean, I could go on about immigration and the need to look after citizens that are already here first before inviting more people into the state. And it's important to mention it, but I think I'll just get back to homelessness. In a state as rich as WA, we still have a homelessness crisis, and that's terrible. With the amount of money we have in this state, that shouldn't be a problem. The previous Parliament published a report with lots of common sense recommendations. Recommendation 20 of the report sought to enhance transparency of the public housing data. What was mentioned by the Honourable Tim Clifford there, recommendation 37 of the report, urgently called for more crisis and transitional accommodation statewide. And the government have been saying there's no quick fix for this for years now, all while things are getting worse for some of our fellow citizens. But what we need right now is a quick fix in terms of providing for rough sleepers with respite from the cold and some safety and dignity. It's all well and good to have long-term strategy, but you also need to address the immediate distress that people are in their current situation. The government has been asked to open up the Bullsbrook quarantine facility, I believe, and for homeless families, but for what I'm told, they refused to do that, to ask the federal government if that would be possible. I'm not sure exactly, I haven't seen how that came about or who asked the questions, but that's what I was informed of. Now, the government says the Bullsbrook facility is not suitable for homelessness. They say the facility is not near enough to services that our homeless people need. But I'm sure if you ask single mums with kids who are living in tents or, in their cars or anything like that, I think to be given, some safe, warm accommodation in Bullsbrook, I think they'd probably think it would be appropriate. Now, I wonder, also, like one of the things I had there, it's possible for mining camps and that to go up in a matter of months and that they get them happening. So, if we can't do that for the homeless and the people don't have housing, it just shows that it is possible, and I think we should be doing more. If we know for business they can do it for mining and places, then surely the government can do that too. To me, it's a very personal issue. I understand the importance of having somewhere to call home. Everyone's heard my story. So just on Monday, I was in Bunbury. I was checking out a possible new electorate office. And on my way back to my car, I come across a lady who was protesting outside of the Honourable Don Punch, I think it's his Bunbury electorate office. And Ingrid told me she was protesting the inaction on helping the homeless in Bunbury who were sleeping out in the cold in the wet winter. And I understand the Honourable Tim Clifford there may be tabling a petition for her in the future, and I commend him for that. So Ingrid told me that in addition to the visible rough sleepers in Bunbury, there's also many more she knows of who are sleeping rough around different remote locations, and I've promised Ingrid that that I would be happy to support her. I'm going to be looking at donating to them in any way I can to help them sort of do what they can. Now, there are many recommendations in the report 88 by the Estimates Committee, and it's important that their work actually results in changes. Some of the recommendations would have been relatively easy to achieve, so I hope the government will comprehensively report on each recommendation and update us on that implementation. And I strongly agree with the second limb of the motion that urgent action is needed to address the rough sleeping, which I believe is covered by the recommendation 37, the urgent provision of crisis and transitory accommodation. We need to stop finding excuses. We need to build facilities for people who are in trouble and can't find a place to sleep, to feel safe and have foundations to build their life up. I'm sure there's a large number of service providers who would unite to manage such facilities if they were created. So in summary, I support this well-worded motion. It's very reasonable. The only criticism I have is that we should not even need a call for this. It should already have happened. Thank you.
Members, the question is